Welcome to the Self-Reliant Life, your guide to building resilience, capability, and freedom in uncertain times. I'm your host, and today we're diving deep into principles and practices that can transform your family's security and future. Over the next 20 minutes, we'll explore three powerful ideas. First, what true emergency preparedness actually looks like, beyond just buying supplies. Second, the surprising psychology of self-discipline and why willpower alone will always fail you. And third, timeless lessons from three historical figures who embodied self-reliance in radically different ways. Whether you're worried about economic uncertainty, want to build family resilience, or simply desire more control over your life's direction, this episode delivers actionable strategies you can implement immediately. Let's begin with a question that makes most people uncomfortable. If the power went out for 2 weeks right now, no electricity, no running water, no grocery stores open, would your family be okay? Most Americans would answer absolutely not. And that's a problem because disruptions happen. Hurricanes, wildfires, ice storms, economic shocks, supply chain breakdowns. These aren't hypothetical scenarios from survivalist fantasies. They're recurring realities that catch unprepared families completely off guard. But here's the good news. Basic emergency preparedness isn't difficult or expensive. What it requires is systematic action over 30 days. Let me walk you through the framework. Week 1 focuses on the most critical survival need, water and food. You need 14 gallons of water per person, a 2-week supply at half a gallon daily. That's 7-gallon containers or cases of bottled water, stored in a cool, dark place. Cost about $30 to $50 per person. Total cost for Week 1, around $200 for a family of 4. Week 2 adds light, heat, and communication. LED flashlights, battery banks for phone charging, and emergency radio for news updates. If you live in a cold climate, you need a way to heat your home without electricity, whether that's a fireplace, wood stove, or propane heater with proper ventilation. Don't forget the carbon monoxide detector with battery backup. Another $200 roughly, but now you've covered survival basics. Week 3 tackles medical supplies, hygiene, and documentation. A comprehensive first aid kit, 30-day supply of any prescription medications, sanitation supplies for when water service stops. Gather copies of critical documents, IDs, insurance policies, bank records, and store them in a waterproof, fireproof container. Withdraw $500 to $1,000 in small bills because ATMs don't work without power and electronic payments fail during emergencies. Week 4 completes your preparation with security, skills, and planning. Talk with neighbors about mutual aid during emergencies. Total cost for this 30-day preparedness plan? $700 to $1,200 for a family. That might seem expensive until you realize this investment provides security against disasters that could cost thousands or prove life-threatening. It's the best insurance you can buy. But here's what most people miss. Emergency preparedness isn't just about supplies, it's about psychology. Prepared families watch disaster news calmly because they know they'll be okay. Unprepared families panic, which leads to poor decisions and dangerous situations. The confidence that comes from knowing you can handle 2 weeks without outside help, that's priceless. And it fundamentally changes how you move through the world. Now let's shift to something equally important, self-discipline. Because all the emergency supplies in the world won't help if you can't stick with the plan to build them. Most people think self-discipline is a character trait. Some people have it, others don't. Research shows this is completely wrong. Self-discipline isn't about willpower, it's about systems. Here's what behavioral science reveals. Willpower is a limited resource that depletes with use. Psychologist Roy Baumeister demonstrated this through experiments where people who resisted temptation, like not eating cookies placed in front of them, subsequently performed worse on unrelated tasks requiring self-control. Their willpower was exhausted. This explains why you can resist donuts at breakfast, but fail to resist ice cream at night. By evening, you've made hundreds of decisions and resisted dozens of temptations. You're running on empty. The implication is profound. Don't rely on willpower alone. Instead, design your environment and routines to minimize situations requiring willpower. Let me give you 3 powerful strategies that actually work. First, implementation intentions. Research by psychologist Peter Gollwitzer shows that specific if-then plans dramatically increase follow-through. Instead of vague goals like, I'll exercise more, you create precise triggers. If it's 6 a.m. on a weekday, then I'll do 30 minutes of exercise before showering. The if-then format creates automatic behavior that doesn't require willpower. Second, commitment devices. These are choices you make now that restrict your future options, forcing your future self to do what your current self wants. Want to save money? Set up automatic transfers on payday before you can spend it. Want to avoid social media distractions? Delete the apps from your phone. Reinstalling requires effort, which creates friction. Want to exercise consistently? Tell friends your goals publicly. Social pressure helps you follow through. Third, the 2-minute rule. When starting new habits, make the initial version take less than 2 minutes. Want to read more? Start with 2 pages nightly. Want to exercise? Start with 2 minutes of stretching. The 2-minute version is sustainable and builds momentum toward longer engagement. These strategies don't require superhuman willpower. They require smart design, and they work because they align with how human psychology actually operates, not how we wish it operated. Here's the compound effect in action. Someone who reads 10 pages daily reads 3,650 pages yearly, roughly 12 books. Someone who exercises 15 minutes daily completes 91 hours of exercise yearly. Small daily actions, sustained over time, create outcomes that seem impossible to people relying on willpower alone. The key insight? Your life's trajectory is determined less by major decisions than by thousands of minor choices you barely notice making. 1% improvement daily compounds to being 37 times better after 1 year. 1% decline daily compounds to nearly zero. The mathematics of compound interest applies to behavior. Small actions, compounded over time, create enormous differences in outcomes. Now let me share 3 stories that bring these principles to life. 3 people from different eras who embodied self-reliance in radically different ways. First, Andrew Carnegie, who went from Scottish immigrant poverty to becoming America's wealthiest man and greatest philanthropist. Carnegie arrived in America at age 12 with his family, who had borrowed money just to emigrate. He started working in a textile mill for $1.20 per week, 12-hour days, changing spools on spinning machines. But Carnegie's real education happened outside that mill. A wealthy businessman named Colonel Anderson opened his personal library to working boys every Saturday. Carnegie devoured books, history, biography, economics, philosophy. He read voraciously and remembered everything. This free access to knowledge transformed a working-class boy into one of America's most educated men. Carnegie systematically built his career through relentless learning. He became a telegraph messenger, then taught himself telegraphy by watching operators. He was promoted to telegraph operator at 14. By 24, he was superintendent of a railroad division. By 30, he was building the steel empire that would make him the world's wealthiest man. But here's what makes Carnegie's story truly remarkable. In 1901, he sold his steel company for $480 million, about $14 billion in today's money. Then he gave away 90% of it. He funded 2,500 libraries worldwide because he believed free access to knowledge enabled self-improvement, exactly as Colonel Anderson's library had done for him. Carnegie proved that starting with nothing doesn't prevent achieving everything. And he demonstrated that accumulation isn't the goal, impact is. Second, Sequoyah, a Cherokee silversmith who accomplished something linguists consider nearly impossible. Around 1821, Sequoyah single-handedly created a complete writing system for the Cherokee language. Sequoyah couldn't read or write English and had no formal education. But during the War of 1812, he observed white soldiers using written messages and became fascinated. Cherokee people had no writing system. Their history and knowledge depended entirely on memory and oral transmission. Sequoyah decided to create one. His community thought he was crazy. For 12 years, he endured mockery while methodically developing his syllabary, 85 symbols representing all Cherokee syllables. When he finally demonstrated the system worked by having his daughter read messages he'd written, Cherokee leaders were astonished. Within months, the syllabary spread throughout the Cherokee nation. Within years, Cherokee literacy rates exceeded those of surrounding white populations. The Cherokee began publishing a bilingual newspaper, adopted a written constitution, and preserved their cultural knowledge in writing for the first time. Sequoia's achievement demonstrates that formal education isn't necessary for intellectual accomplishment. What's necessary is persistence through mockery, careful observation and analysis, and long-term commitment. Sequoia worked 12 years on his syllabary while everyone told him he was wasting his time. That's the discipline required for extraordinary achievement. Third, Margaret Thatcher, who became Britain's first female prime minister in 1979 and saved her nation from economic collapse. Thatcher inherited catastrophe: inflation over 10%, rising unemployment, unions controlling major industries through strikes, garbage piling in streets. She reduced government spending and top tax rates from 83% to 40%. She defended British sovereignty militarily in the Falklands War and diplomatically against Soviet communism. The policies were controversial, deeply so. But Thatcher wasn't governing by polls or consensus. "I am not a consensus politician," she said. "I'm a conviction politician." She believed certain principles were right and pursued them despite intense opposition. By 1990, when she left office, Britain's economy was growing faster than Germany's or France's. Union strikes had dropped from 29 million lost days annually to under 2 million. Home ownership increased from 55 to 67%. 9 million people owned shares in formerly state-owned companies. Thatcher demonstrated that declining nations can reverse course through determined leadership based on principle rather than popularity. Her legacy remains controversial, but no one denies she fundamentally changed Britain's trajectory. So what connects these three stories? What do Carnegie, Sequoia, and Thatcher teach us about self-reliance today? First, education is accessible to those who seek it. Carnegie had virtually no formal schooling, but became one of America's most educated men through reading. Sequoia had no linguistic training, but created a writing system. Thatcher mastered complex policy details through disciplined study. None of them waited for someone to give them knowledge. They took it. Second, persistence overcomes mockery and opposition. Carnegie worked 12-hour days as a teenager while other boys played. Sequoia endured 12 years of ridicule while perfecting his syllabary. Thatcher faced constant criticism, death threats, and political opposition without wavering. They all understood that necessary achievements are rarely popular initially. Third, think long-term while others think short-term. Carnegie bought assets during economic downturns and built for decades, not quarters. Sequoia worked 12 years on a project most people quit after 12 weeks. Thatcher sacrificed short-term popularity for long-term transformation of Britain. They all accepted delayed gratification in exchange for lasting impact. Fourth, serve something beyond yourself. Carnegie gave away 90% of his wealth to help others improve themselves. Sequoia created the syllabary to preserve Cherokee culture and empower his people. Thatcher endured personal attacks because she believed her policies would save Britain. They weren't motivated purely by self-interest. They were motivated by contribution. These principles apply regardless of your circumstances. You won't build a steel empire, invent a writing system, or become prime minister. But you can educate yourself relentlessly, persist through opposition, think long-term, and serve others. And those principles, applied consistently over years, create remarkable outcomes. Here's your action step for today. Choose one area from this episode and implement it this week. Maybe that's starting your 30-day emergency preparedness plan. Today, order water containers and shelf-stable food. Maybe it's creating one implementation intention using the if-then format. Maybe it's identifying one book to read that will build knowledge in an area you want to master. Don't try to do everything simultaneously. That requires more willpower than you have. Build systematically, one step at a time. Remember, resilience isn't built overnight. It's built systematically over time through consistent effort. Self-discipline isn't about superhuman willpower, it's about smart systems. And achievement isn't mysterious, it's disciplined action repeated over time. The trajectory of your life is determined by thousands of small choices you make daily. Starting today, make those choices deliberately. Compound them over time. build the resilient, capable, self-reliant life you want. Thank you for listening to the Self-Reliant Life. Until next time, stay prepared, stay disciplined, and stay free. Civilizationbuilders.net, www.amazon.com/author, Jenna Constant. Rebuild civilization, one voice at a time. Connecting generations, preserving wisdom, building tomorrow.